One last topic I want to hit today, and this is the most amazing thing, because my opening today, I was talking a little bit about the NBA and their disastrous final game, where they had basically no one in America watching, with 6 million people, which was far, far, far fewer people than watched many other similar games. And so, and in fact, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it was a minute portion of people who used to watch the NBA Finals games. America is sick of being told by the NBA and by the left that they have to support Black Lives Matter, and that the core of the idea of Black Lives Matter is accept the broad-based accusation being made by the American left that America is a deeply racist country, a systemically racist country, and that America is simply, almost irredeemable and must punish itself for how evil it is. Americans are tired of being told that. It doesn't pass the smell test with the American people anymore. The degree to which the American left is trying to make a broad-based accusation against all of America that we're a deeply racist country. People just saying, sorry, not buying it. But I do want to tell you the most interesting thing. So Colin Kaepernick, you remember his name? He was a quarterback. He kind of made the national media, brought about the whole big national debate because he refused prior to games to stand for the national anthem. In fact, he kneeled for the national anthem and was very outspoken in saying the reason he was doing that is because he wanted to protest police brutality and protest racism in America. So that was his stand. Obviously, we all know all the stories. President Trump criticized him, a lot of lines drawn politically. You had players joining him, players condemning it. It's just kind of the opening, sadly, of many games now, is people watching, to the extent they are watching, people saying, well, are the players going to stand for the national anthem, going to kneel for the national anthem? You have players who stood and said, look, I love America. I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm not saying we couldn't do better in certain things, but they were always willing to stand. Other players kneeled. There's all this tension. Well, Colin Kaepernick has formed, astonishingly, I don't know what exactly they do, and I'm not really sure that I'm that curious, but he's formed an organization called Kaepernick Publishing, and they, along with another organization called Level, Level, they have a series of articles called Abolition for the People. Abolition for the People. Colin Kaepernick, or someone writing for him, I don't know if he wrote this or not. Many famous people don't write their own things. They have somebody else write them. But Colin Kaepernick is out with an article in this Kaepernick Publishing and under Level called, essentially, they are the demand for abolition. And the central demand in this first article is not just to defund the police. He is making that demand, but it's also making the demand to end prisons in America. Literally end prisons. Stop having prisons. And I want you to just let that soak in a little bit, because he's not talking about, reviewing the criminal justice system, trying to see if we can weed out racism, trying to decide if racism played a factor in certain convictions, or if we have some other problem in the justice system. He's talking about ending prisons. He's talking about defunding the police. And what I really want to say about a couple of things about, as you read the way he writes, he sounds like, I have not met the man, he sounds like he has a Messiah complex. Like somehow, because he was the one to kneel on the field, in his football games, to kneel and just prove to the world that he could, show disdain for America, disdain for the flag, disdain for the national anthem, that he could show how much he hates America. And that's his message. Understand, that's his message. America's not worthy of respect. America is not worthy of standing for the flag, standing for the national anthem. America is such a disgraceful country that it does not deserve his respect. That's his message. But you get the sense, reading him, that it's a little bit of this Messiah complex, like he's arrived on the scene in America to help all of us understand, the truth about America, the depth of truth about America, that America it truly is this deeply systemically racist country, and that it's just racism under every rock. It's the same argument as Black Lives Matter, same argument as Antifa. same argument as a lot of the leftist organizations. It's not the argument that they want to, which I would totally support, the idea of investigating every questionable interaction between police and citizens, digging in to find out when they're, and we already do this, when an officer fires his weapon, especially if fires and whether he hits and kills a citizen, there's always an investigation. We don't have this rampant officer shooting and no investigation, no follow-up. This doesn't happen. In this country, we already investigate when officers fire their guns. If there's a shooting that's questionable, we already have all sorts of organizations, both the police organization itself, the district attorney, oftentimes the state level investigators get involved, sometimes federal investigators get involved. We look into instances where there's any question as to whether or not an officer firing his gun was justified. We already do this. But Colin Kaepernick believes that he is raising the awareness of America, that we have this rampant, just endless, unjustified, out of control officer firing of weapons against innocent Black Americans, killing Black Americans in unjustified numbers, in horrible numbers, and he is saying it's so bad. The system is so evil, so just ridden with evil systemic racism that there's no salvaging it. That's his argument. There's no salvaging it. That you just got to give up, got to abandon the whole system, got to defund the police, get rid of prisons, start over. He's all the happy talk, idiotic language of many leftists about the idea that we're all got to understand better and just silly level stuff. But the reason I want to talk about in this show today, obviously he's not going to be a policymaker for the Democrat Party. They're not going to enforce the idea that we're going to defund the police around the country and release everyone from prison. But I did want to say that you have a Colin Kaepernick making these arguments and very earnest. He's not, throwing something wild out there and saying, look, I know it's a little bit crazy, but here's what I'm thinking. He's serious. He's here to expose the evil of America, and he's here to save us from ourselves and save America from the evil of the police and the evil of our entire criminal justice system. And he actually thinks that he's right. So what I want to talk to you about in the last few full closing minutes of the show today is, why would he think he's right? Why does he think the country is as evil as he apparently believes that it is? I'll tell you one reason is because we have so many people in the media spinning the stories, repeating the stories, giving headlines to stories, even after the investigation has occurred, even after we've all discovered what really happened with Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri. And Michael Brown never put his hands up, never said don't shoot, never stopped charging the officer, the same officer he'd earlier in the day punched and crushed his eye socket. That officer who fired, that's what happened in the Michael Brown case. That's what actually happened in Ferguson, Missouri. But you don't hear a politician in this country telling that story. You don't hear President Obama. At the time, he could have said, let me come forward, America, before we get too far down the path of outrage over this. Maybe we should all have the facts straight. Maybe America should learn what really happened. Look, I don't want any shooting of, I wish there were never people shot and killed by guns. It's a horrible thing to go through. Horrible thing for Michael Brown's family. But the facts are, we got into a national hysteria over Trayvon. We also had the Trayvon Martin hoax. We've talked about in this show before. Trayvon Martin was not an innocent kid skipping down the street with his bag of Skittles and brutally shot randomly by somebody who was not even white, by the way, but brutally shot by a Hispanic American. Trayvon Martin was shot and killed, sadly, as he was trying to kill the man who shot him. As he was Trayvon Martin sitting on top of the person who eventually killed him, slamming his head into the pavement. And the person on the ground having his head bashed into the pavement, worrying he's about to die, was able to get his gun out and shoot Trayvon Martin. That's what happened in the Trayvon Martin story. We have the Michael Brown story. But we have the real story of Michael Brown. By the way, there's a new film coming out on the Michael Brown story, which is a Shelby Steele-backed production. I'm going to be sure and follow that, try to get Shelby Steele and talk about it. My point is, one reason that Colin Kaepernick feels that he is morally right in bringing out and proposing ending prisons and ending the police is because he doesn't have his facts straight. He doesn't know those true stories. He doesn't know many other cases that became famous, and you just put the name of the victim out there, the one who was shot, and most Americans, oh yes, this was terrible. We don't actually talk about the whole story. We don't have people in positions of responsibility and authority who should be bringing out the whole story, telling the whole story. Compounded with that, we have this leftist BLM driven, the Marxist organization BLM, who is in action, who is engaged in the attack on America because they want to bring about Marxism and end America the free, America the brave, America the strong. The BLM is about the Marxist overthrow of America. The BLM happily perpetuates the myth that there is just a massive number of shootings of innocent black men in America, unarmed black men by police officers. It's practically a plague, it's an epidemic. So back to just one data point, in 2019, in the year 2019, how many unarmed black men were killed by police officers in this country? How many? And the reason I want you to stop and think about that is because if you listen to Colin Kaepernick and the BLM, you would think it's in the dozens or hundreds or maybe even thousands. At the very most, in 2019 in America, the number of unarmed black men killed by police officers was 13. 13. Now, even in those cases, the fact that the person was unarmed does not mean that the shooting was unjustified. It may be one that was unjustified, or it may have been justified given the other violent action being taken by the person who ended up being shot by the police officer. We do not have this epidemic of shooting and killing innocent black Americans that the left pushes as its storyline. And the left pushes that storyline to keep America divided, to keep us hateful, to keep people like Colin Kaepernick wound up. That's the kind of thing that Colin Kaepernick, no one ever says to him. No one ever says, how do you answer to that fact? That we don't have this epidemic you're trying to claim is true. And then we have all sorts of other reasons. I'm kind of out of time for today. But in addition to the perpetuating of lies and exaggerations by the left with respect to violence, engagement by police against black citizens, you have the whole racialization of issue after issue after issue after issue in this country, turning every issue there is into being one of race, even when it has nothing to do with race. And the perpetual racialization, the intentional siloing of America into racial categories, and then assigning victimhood status to each of those categories, and then inflicting on each of those silos of people beliefs about their fellow citizens, that somehow your fellow citizens don't care about you, they hate you, they don't care about your well-being. This is the MO, this is the standard operating procedure of the American left. To silo, to racialize, to pit us against each other. So you have, just one example, I'm out of time to talk about today, I'm going to talk about sometime soon. You have the Mathematical Association of America, the math teachers in America, come out with a policy paper explaining that math, like learning in school math, is racist, and that it was a scolding of teachers and administrators in our country about how they have to adjust the entire way they teach math, because math itself is racist, expectations about math and understanding of math, all of that. I mean, it's very actually insulting to people of all races to think math, which is simply math, it is a fact, either 2 and 2 is 4 or it's not. But you have even that, the torquing of America, the twisting of America, the racialization of America, actually harming the people of America, harming our culture and our ability to be the fabric, the good America that we really are. So Colin Kaepernick is a victim, in some ways, a victim not of the deeply racialized America he imagines exists. He's a victim of the leftist assault on America's culture and fabric and people that continues to press the idea that America is a deeply racist country, finds a million reasons to claim it's true, never tells the truth about these stories, the instances involved with the police officers shooting of citizens, doesn't correct the record when a lie has gotten out there, never fixes a story, doesn't put true statistics out, never tells all the good of the police officers in this country, all the good they do for the American people. You have the radical anti-American left spending its time trying to racially divide America, and Colin Kaepernick is one sad and sick outcome of that, because he actually thinks he's standing up against a society that he falsely believes is so deeply racist that he can barely function, that the only possible way to handle the extensive racism that's filled America is to clear out the prisons, end prison, and defund the police. When you watch what's happening in the streets of America today, we barely can have safety and security in our major cities because of BLM and Antifa, who are engaged in the kind of level rioting and destruction they are. And the answer of the left is to end the police. Seriously, folks. I mean, it's so twisted. We'll have to come back to another day.